the NBA tonight, the Wolves traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. Minnesota third in the West, but is just one game ahead of the fifth place LA in the standings. Both teams rolling right now, 1-5 in the last 6 games. LeBron James questionable for this one after missing the Lakers' last 2 games due to injury. It hasn't affected him on the record. More on that in a minute. And it's possible that this is a finals preview as the Spurs host the Celtics tonight. Both teams second in the respective conferences, led by Victor Wembanyama. San Antonio's dropped just 1 game since the start of February, while Boston got a shot in the arm with the return of Jason Tatum from his torn Achilles. And really, that's been one of the stories in the NBA as we welcome in our NBA reporter, Tim Bontemps. And Bontemps, I mean, I said shot in the arm for this Celtics team with what they've gotten out of Jason Tatum. But he's come back and he's making it look really, really easy in his game since he's returned. What can you tell us about how it's been really seamless for him?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, that's been my takeaway from these first couple of games is that Jason Tatum has come back and looked like he never left. I mean, it's been pretty remarkable to see a guy miss 10 months with an Achilles tear, obviously a brutal injury for an NBA player to come back from, and he really looks like the same guy as before. Now, obviously, his shot has been a little off. I think he was 6 for 16 in both games. That's the one thing that's looked a little rusty. He had that attempted dunk in the game against Dallas on Friday when he went to the rim and ended up being too short on his jump. But you see him here making plays for his teammates. He's an excellent help defender. He's a great rebounder. He's always been really good at lifting up his teammates and filling in all the gaps wherever it needs to be done. He did all of that and then some in these first 2 games. I think it couldn't have possibly gone better if you're a Celtics fan, a member of the Celtics organization, or Jason Tatum himself. And I think it has firmly made them the favorites going forward in the Eastern Conference now that he is back in the fold and with the way they've been playing all season long.
No question. You're talking about a team that had the presumptive MVP favorite in Jaylen Brown. They were near the top of the standings. You wondered how long those basketball legs would take. It didn't look too long for Jason Tatum. Switching gears now back to the Lakers. I mentioned a second ago, the record hasn't really hurt the Lakers when it's just Luka and Austin Reeves and LeBron out. In fact, they're 9-2 when LeBron is out with those 2 in. So is there a scenario, Tim, where this team feels good about their, air quotes, big 3 being together and healthy for a stretch run?
Well, Matt, this is the fascinating thing about this Los Angeles Lakers team all season long. Whenever they've had 2 of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James on the court, they've been really, really good. Any of the 2. But when they've had all 3 of them out there, they're actually getting outscored by their opponents. And that has been sort of the fundamental question of this Lakers season, which is, can this team, which has been hovering around a neutral point differential all season long, actually make a run with those 3 guys together on the court and with the obvious defensive issues that it causes? However, all that being said, Matt, for all the criticism of the Lakers, for all the questions about their the actual upside of this roster with the lack of defensive pieces around those guys, the lack of shooting around those guys, the questions about DeAndre Ayton at center, all that being said, they're right in this mix with the Nuggets, with the Rockets, and with the team they're playing tonight, the Minnesota Timberwolves, to be in that 3rd seed in the Western Conference standings. And if I'm any of these teams, the spot you want to be in is that 3rd spot, because Oklahoma City, with the presumptive MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, likely to be the 1 seed, the defending champs again. And if I could get that 3 seed, get home court advantage in the first round, and presumably play a San Antonio Spurs team that, while incredibly talented with Victor Wembanyama, has no playoff experience basically to speak of outside of Harrison Barnes, that is a path where the Lakers could potentially make a run. They could get a lot closer to it with a win at home tonight against Minnesota.
And I don't think there's anyone dumb enough to bet against LeBron to find it for a 2-month stretch in the playoffs with a player like Luka by his side. We'll find out. Regular season's coming.
Spurs, Celtics 2-0 since Tatum returned to the lineup with 2 double-digit victories. Tatum has 35 points on 38% shooting in his 2 games since his return from a torn Achilles. Meanwhile, no team is playing better hoops than this team, the Spurs. They go for their 9th straight home win tonight. They're 15-1 since the start of February, outscoring teams by 13.6 points per game. Since the start of this past month of February, these teams have the 2 best records in the league. Both teams have also seen their title odds move drastically. They are 2 of the 4 favorites to win the NBA title. For more on the 2 contenders facing off, Tony and Mike, PTI bonus topic.
All right, Wilbon, what is the biggest story in this Celtics-Spurs matchup?
Let's see, Tom.
It could be Jason Tatum's return, the continued story there. It could be Jaylen Brown's MVP caliber season. It could be the emergence of people like Peyton Pritchard, who apparently is going to be out, but still his emergence this season. It could be about them, but no. The story every time he puts on the jersey is Victor Wembanyama. Tonight, tomorrow night, last week, next week, and likely right until early June is Wembanyama. And for people who think, oh, it's not time to watch the NBA yet, shut up, turn your TV on, get some popcorn, and watch the show. Because that's what this kid does every time he tees it up.
It's amazing that you got to shut up in there, inventing straw dogs, people that don't want to watch, and just told them to shut up.
Yes.
I do. So you know me a long time, and you know that I usually don't believe that any one game is meaningful in a regular season, and I don't. But I will say that in this situation, the biggest story would be if the Celtics won this game. The Celtics are on this. It's a short road trip, but it's still a road trip.
It is.
It's at Cleveland. It's at San Antonio. It's at Oklahoma City. So you can't get up for one game over any the other two games. San Antonio should win this game. They should. They have the best record since February 1st. They have the best record. They've been the best team. They are legitimate. And I know you don't want to deal with this because you think that everybody's got to get their hearts broken.
Yeah, I do.
They are legitimate contenders for the NBA championship. Boston should not win this one. If Boston wins this one, that is the biggest story, because that would be, to me, not totally unexpected, but unexpected, and it would be a meaningful game, because if you're Boston, you have to think, if we get to the finals, it's really going to be San Antonio or Oklahoma City. It's
Tony,
one of those two.
It would be a big deal result. I agree with you there. And look, you know how I feel about San Antonio. They're a wonder, and they're coming to get you. And if you're OKC or Denver, and you've already had the last couple, you better try to get one real quick. Because when the big fella comes to get you, there's going to be no escaping him for about, 8 of the next 10 to 12 years. So I agree with you overall on San Antonio. But what propels teams to win in that league? It's heartache. It's getting crushed. Whether you are Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, they've had heartache. I'm saying San Antonio may have to have some too. But before we get to that, San Antonio's time. That's it. We're done. Back to you.
Where San Antonio almost never loses. For more, let's get our NBA analyst for CBS Sports, John Gonzalez. John, today we get an epic matchup between the Spurs and the Celtics, two of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. Let's start with the San Antonio side. They're sitting in second place behind the Thunder, on pace for 50 wins this season. How impressive has this Spurs team been, and should we be viewing them as a legitimate finals contender?
Yeah, I can't wait for this game tonight. This is going to be a really good one. They've been incredibly impressive, and we should view them as contenders. 9-1 since the All-Star break, Katie. They're tied with Oklahoma City for the best record. If we go back further, they've won 15 of their last 16. They're top 5 in offense and defense against teams that are 500 or better. This is the big one. They're 27-11. That's the best record in the NBA against good winning teams. Now, the West is loaded, right? It's a tough road, and their biggest competition is Oklahoma City, and I think Denver, even though the Wolves are higher in the standings. But against those two teams, they're 5-1 against the Thunder and the Nuggets this season. And oh, by the way, they have Wemby. I think, look, SGA is the reigning MVP and the reigning Finals MVP, and I still believe that Joker's the best player in the world. Wemby might be the most unguardable player in the league. I think he's going to be the defensive player of the year if he can clear that 65-game threshold. None of this means that the Spurs are going to win it all, because there's a lot of good competition, and the league has, I think, the most parity it's had in quite some time, especially in the upper echelons. But yes, the Spurs are no doubt about it contenders right now. Yeah, if there's anyone that can give OKC a run for their money, we have seen this Spurs team do it time and again. And of course, they are led by the alien himself, Victor Wembanyama. Over his last 3 games, John, he's dropped 29, 27, and 38 points with 2 double-doubles within that stretch. Big picture here, John, is Wemby the best player in basketball right now? You said he's unguardable, but is he the best? He's on the short list, right? He is absolutely unguardable. I would like for him to be more consistent offensively, and he definitely is, as you mentioned, finding his rhythm lately. I think, look, the defensive end comes naturally to him. The offensive end is where he's still figuring out what he could do. I've made this analogy before, but it's worth repeating. He kind of reminds me of the Raptors in Jurassic Park testing the electric fence and figuring out what he can do. Like, when he figures out that he's capable of opening doorknobs, it is over for the rest of the league offensively. And then on defense, he just has the biggest impact of anyone, right? He's a massive deterrent. Nobody wants to go into the paint when that guy is lurking. He leads the league in stocks by a mile. That's combined steals and blocks. I think he should be the defensive player of the year, independent of that stupid 65-game threshold that you and I have talked about ad nauseum. Now, is he the best player in the world? There's two other guys that would like a word about this, right? SGA, as I mentioned, reigning MVP and Finals MVP. We just saw him take over the end of the Nuggets game the other night and hit that game winner. And then Jokic, I think, has been the best player in the world for years now. And I'm not sure that Wemby has necessarily passed them yet, but his time will come. That will happen. But he's already right there with him. He's in good company. You
know, John, I already knew that I liked you a lot, but the fact that you just dropped a Jurassic Park reference on here with the Raptors testing the gates, 90s kids, stand up right now. Love that. Great movie. A lot of people haven't seen the original one, which is a travesty. All right, on the other side, the Celtics have their own superstar making headlines. Jason Tatum returning from that Achilles injury. He's played 2 games so far, scoring 20 and 15 points. How have you felt about his return, John? And does having Tatum back make Boston now a true finals contender as well?
Well, if you're asking me, a Philadelphian, how I feel, probably the same as the rest of the league, which is not great. Nobody outside of Boston wanted to see Tatum come back. He's looked fantastic, Katie, and he's being added on to a team that's already really good, right? I mean, none of this was predicted. He only missed 10 months with an Achilles, which is remarkable. A lot of us, myself included, figured he'd miss the entire season, and now he's back with over a month until the playoffs start. So that's plenty of time for him to knock off any rust, and he doesn't look like he has a ton of that. He almost had a triple-double in his season debut against the Mavs, and he definitely gives the Celtics a major boost. And here's the scary part. The Celtics were already contenders without him, right? Since January 1, best record in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. They're closing the gap on the Pistons, who have lately wobbled a little bit. They're just 2.5 games back of Detroit for first place. On paper, this should not be possible. When we look at this roster, it's so far before they got Jason Tatum back. They had Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Nehemias Queta step forward. After that, you're talking about Sam Hausers and Ugo Gonzalez's and Baylor Shiremans. I mean, Joe Mazzulla, I had him second on my Coach of the Year list. I think I might have to move him up to 1 because he's playing 11 and 12 guys regularly, and they're just greater than the sum of their parts. And now the sum of their parts includes a new part, which is an old part, in Jason Tatum. So yes, they're absolutely contenders. It's just ridiculous.
I gotta tell you, John, I was worried about the team chemistry with Jason Tatum coming back because they had been on such a roll. You think you bring the superstar back, it might change things, but no, it seems like the missing piece, even though there was no missing piece really there, has been just taking them to another level. But John, later tonight, we also got the Timberwolves and the Lakers. Minnesota has been one of the better teams coming out of the All-Star break, going 6-2 in their last 8. What's the ceiling for this Wolves team, and is there a realistic scenario where they could be playing in the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, they've been playing really well, right? I mean, they're up to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, and could they be in the Western Conference Finals? Yeah, they've already made it the last 2 seasons, right? There's no reason why they couldn't make it again. They know what it takes to get there, and if they make it again, so we're talking about their ceiling, if they make it again, that means there's a non-zero chance that they could win it this time, which means that they could advance to the finals, which means that they could be playing for a championship and to potentially win one. So their ceiling is, along with a handful of teams in the Western Conference, Oklahoma City, I mentioned the Denver Nuggets, we talked at length about the Spurs. I think the Wolves are in a tier right below those teams in terms of their championship aspirations. And not for nothing, the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Spurs are probably the favorites in the West. Well, guess what? The Wolves are 2-1 against the Thunder, and they're 2-1 against the Spurs this season. So they've proven they can beat those teams. And Anthony Edwards is one of the best in the league, right? I mean, he's leading that team again this season, having an incredible year. He's going to make All-NBA again. Their first 6, I think, is as good as any team in the league. And then what happened? Their bench was a little weak, so at the trade deadline, they went and added Ayo Dosunmu to sort of bolster that bench and give Naz Reid a running mate with that second unit. There's a lot of competition, as we've mentioned, in the West, but I think the Wolves are right there and have a chance to, maybe a little bit longer odds than some of those other teams that we mentioned, but still not out of it in terms of being a contender.
Yeah, and as we looked at that graphic, 19-1 for them to win the West. And if you think about it, it might be worth a little bit of a sprinkle after everything that you just laid out here. A little sprinkle, a little something.
A little sprinkle.
Meanwhile, the Lakers have won 5 of their last 6. But the big question remains how they stack up against the elite competition that you've already laid out today. They're just 16-20 against teams 500 or better this season. Do you believe in this Lakers team, fully healthy, that they can make some sort of a real playoff push here?
I do not. They don't beat good teams. I mean, you mentioned that they won 5 out of 6. Okay, fine. I think that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. They don't beat good teams, and they don't play defense. They're 20th in defensive rating, and it's hard to win that way, right? Like, so their top 3. It's basically a 3-man team, and the 3 are very, very good. Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, great first 3. Okay, my whole thing is, then what, right? Here's a game that I've been playing with people. Who's the 4th best player on the Lakers? If it's DeAndre Ayton, and by the way, it's not, you're in trouble. DeAndre Ayton, who recently whined about how they're trying to turn him into Clint Capella, which, by the way, poor Clint Capella catching strays from DeAndre Ayton, not great. It's not Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is a very good rotation player, but he can't be your 4th best player. After that, we're talking about guys like Jake LaRavia, Jackson Hayes. They just got Luke Kennard. This is why J.J. Redick has, these press conferences where he seems agitated. I would be agitated too, because that roster is so thin. They've been setting this whole thing up, Katie, to sort of clean house and rebuild around Luka and Austin Reeves this offseason and next offseason. So for me, when I look at the Lakers, I think maybe they went around, but who's a matchup that you would feel good about taking the Lakers with? I mean, right now it would be 4-5 against the Rockets. I'll take the Rockets. Maybe they fall to 6. Then they run into the Wolves. I'll take the Wolves. I just don't see a good matchup for them out there. I think it's probably a first-round exit for them. Yeah,
I mean, they've been decent this year, but like you said, the West is just so stacked with elite teams that it's hard for them to go farther than, like you said, the first round. John Gonzalez, always a pleasure on a Tuesday. Thanks for stopping by and chatting with us. Here's a look at the shortest odds to win the NBA Finals. Thunder are the favorite to go back-to-back at +125. And then how about those Spurs at 600, +600, followed by the C's, the Cavs, and the Nuggets, and then the Knicks at 18-1, rounding